how does that look when the car's close to them? Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so as you were saying, we're thinking about the car's movement now. So here to here and stop, wait for the lights to turn green, and then move off again. So we've got a few points we're going to aim for. Now, point 1 to point 2, I think we'll make last about 4 seconds. So I'm going to go into the car layer, the car folder, open it up. I'm going to go out to 4 seconds. So that's frame 96. And now on frame 96 for car wheel R, car wheel L, and car wheel body, car body, I'm going to add keyframes. But I'm going to do it all at once. You could do it individually, just select and then F6, select F6, select F6. Or you can click and drag to select those 3 frames on the 3 layers, so frame 96 on each of those three layers, and then F6 to insert the keyframe. Now, because I want my other 2 layers to match up with my car layers, I'm going to add a frame. So not a keyframe, I'm going to add a frame to the same frame on the traffic lights and background layer. So highlight them like we did for the cars, and then F5 to add a frame so the length of each layer is equal. Okay, so now I'm going to select those 3 keyframes for the right, left and wheel and the body, and I'm going to drag the car over to here, just in front of the lights. Okay, now the next animation that I want the car to do is to lunge forward. So we'll skew it forwards and then back. So to do that, I'm going to make it last about 10 frames. So I'm going to add a point at which is going to be lunged forward, and then a point at which is going to be lunged back. So I'll leave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames between. I'm going to add keyframes here. And then I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then add keyframes here. Okay, so this is the frame where it stops, this is the frame where it's lunged forward, and then this is the frame where it returns back to its position. Okay, now I'm going to add frames there to bring the length up to equality. Now we need to decide how long we want our car stopped for and waiting at the lights. So at the moment we're up to frame 108, just longer than 4 seconds. So I think we'll extend up to 5 and then 3 seconds later. Okay, so we'll go for roughly, it'll be stationary for roughly 3.5 seconds. Okay, so we'll go from 5 up to 8. On the frame at 8 seconds, we'll add a keyframe to each of those car layers, so F6, and then a frame to the traffic lights and background layers. So this is where the car starts moving again, and then it's going to move off from 8 seconds, and it's going to move over to the right side of the screen. So again, I think we'll make this the length of this about 3 seconds. So we'll go from 8 up to 11 and add keyframes there and frames on those 2 layers. And then after it goes off the screen, I don't want the animation to end straight away. I want it to have a bit of time to wait. So we'll add on another 3 seconds for the car to be stationary after it's left the screen. So up to frame 14, at 14 seconds. Now this time I don't need to add a keyframe because it's already in its final position. So I'm just going to highlight the 5 layers together at the frame at 14 seconds and just simply add a frame, insert frame. Okay, so let's have a look. So we start on the left and then we come forwards, we get to just in front of the lights, we wait and then move forwards again, and we go off the stage. And as you can see, we forgot to make that final movement. So we need to go back to the frame at 11 seconds because I forgot to move it off. So I'm going to select those 3 keyframes together and drag the car, holding shift on my keyboard to keep it aligned. And it's not aligning it actually, so I'm just going to move it with my arrows. I'm going to hold down shift and move right with my right arrow because I don't want it to go out of alignment. Just there, slightly off the screen. Okay, and then it stays there. Great, so our car positioning is done. Now let's add the bits in between. So we want tweens in between the positions, and because I'm just doing a simple point-to-point movement, I don't want to change the path. I'm going to go with a classic tween to keep it simple. Now I could add these individually to each layer, so right click and create classic tween, but because we're working on those 3 car layers together, I'm going to work on them together still. So I'm going to, between the first and second keyframes on those 3 layers, I'm going to highlight some frames together. It doesn't matter which frames I highlight as long as they're between the first and second keyframes. And if I right click and create classic tween, then it creates the effect of the car moving. So I'm going to turn on onion skinning so I can see it, yeah, and you can see that the car will move. And I'm going to play that. I've just created a section to loop, so the car is moving forwards and then it stops. Brilliant. I'm going to turn onion skin off. Right, let's add a bit more impact. So we're going to make the car a bit slower at the start and then go forwards and speed up as it comes towards the traffic lights. To do this, we'll add an ease in effect. So again, I'm going to select some frames on those 3 layers, okay, because I want to do them together. And I'm going to go to the frame properties window. Under tweening, I'm going to go to the effect. It's on classic ease. Now I want it to ease in, so I want it slower at the beginning and faster at the end. And I want it quite a bit faster, so I'm going to look for a steeper curve than this at the end. So quad is quite uniform at the end, as you can see there. So I want it a bit steeper. So the cubic would be better, and quint would be even faster at the end. Circ looks like it could be good. Okay, I'm going to try circ and see how that looks. So I'm going to double click that ease in effect and then go to frame 1 and play it. Okay, so that's looking alright there. I'm going to try a different effect actually. Instead of circ, let's see how quint looks. Yeah, I think I prefer that one. I think I prefer quint over circ. Okay, so that's done, the movement, our first movement. But as you notice there, the wheels are not moving. So let's add some rotation to the wheels. Now obviously we don't want the car body to rotate. So this time, instead of selecting the 3 layers together, we're going to select the 2 layers, the car wheel right and the car wheel left. So we're going to apply the rotation at the same time. So anywhere between the first 2 keyframes on those 2 layers, we're going to select some frames. And over here in the frame properties window, again under tweening, we've got the rotation, which is just under the effect. And I'm going to rotate it clockwise Now, one rotation isn't going to be enough, so I'm going to try 10. Let's try 10. I click enter and see how it looks. I want to go from frame 1. There we go, the wheels are rotating. Nice, that looks good. So those wheels are rotating well. If you feel it's too fast, then you can just reduce the number of rotations, or if it's too slow, increase it. Okay, so there's the car moving forwards and stopping. So now let's add in that dramatic effect of the car lunging forwards. So the keyframes here are going to stay as they are, and the next keyframes are where the car is going to be lunged forward, and then the next set of keyframes is going to be returned to this position. So these three I'm leaving as they are, these three are staying as they are as well, but these middle three are the ones where it's going to be lunged. So again, highlight those three keyframes. So mine are on frame 102, I think that's 102. So I've highlighted those three keyframes together. Now this is a little bit tricky because we are changing the skew of three different symbols at the same time. So we've selected the three together, and I'm choosing the free transform tool. Now we're going to skew it forwards like this, so grabbing the edge. But the problem is, if I skew it like this, the point of rotation, the point of reference is the very center. Okay, so it's skewing about the center point. But as you can see, that doesn't look right because the wheels move backwards, and we don't want the wheels moving backwards. So let's take this white dot in the middle, this point of reference, and bring it down to lay on top of the edge of the car. Now our point of reference is on the bottom edge of those three symbols together, and as centered as we can between the two wheels. Okay, I've still got those three keyframes selected, and I'm going to skew it forward. So now as you can see, as I'm skewing it now, the wheels are staying put in their place where they're touching the floor. Okay, so I'm going to, oh, can you see then I undid it and the point of reference reverted. Okay, so I messed it up. So I need to move the point of reference again. So that's where this is tricky, because every time you undo or deselect the shapes, because they're not tied together, the symbol, sorry, the point of reference will revert back to the center. So I'm putting it back down to the bottom in between the wheels, skewing it forwards. I'll be quite dramatic, I think, and go up to the lights and then see how it looks. So we're going to go from there, skew forwards and back. Okay, so let's create the effect. I'm going to change my play in loop so I can watch the skewing happening together. Okay, and again I'm going to apply some classic tweens in between these keyframes. So I'm going to select these sets of frames and create classic tween, and then do the same here. Okay, play. Okay, that looks, yeah, I'm happy with the way that looks. Let's watch it, let's see for a bit longer. So it starts on the left, approaches the lights, and comes to a stop and lunges forward. Nice. Maybe thinking about it now, I could have maybe 4 seconds from the left to the first stop here was too much. Maybe it should have been 3, but it's okay. If you want to change it to 3, you can. I'll stick with 4 there. Okay, let's have a look. Watching my skew there, actually, I am feeling like it is a little bit slow, that lunge forwards. So I'm going to make the skew quicker, and I think I will make that first movement quicker as well. So to do it, I'm going to select the skew forward position, the lunge forward, and I'm going to drag those 3 keyframes back 2 frames, and then select the return position and drag it back 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's equal distance between the skew forwards and the skew backwards. Okay, let's watch that now. Yeah, that's a bit quicker. And I'm going to highlight these 3 sets of keyframes, and I want that first movement to be a bit quicker, so I'll take it back to about 3.5 seconds. Okay, just because I feel it was a bit slow going from off the screen to up to the traffic lights. Now if I go to the end of my frames, we can see it's still at 14 seconds, so it hasn't affected, that movement hasn't affected the length of our frames on those layers. Okay. Okay, there we go, I'm happy. That hasn't changed it dramatically, just sped it up slightly from point to point and then that lunge forwards. Okay, so we end there, we stopped, and then we wait in here, and then from 8 seconds to 11 seconds we want tween again. So between these 2 sets of keyframes on 8 seconds and 11 seconds, I'm going to select some frames, and I'm going to right click and create a classic tween. And think about movement of car. As it pulls off, it's going to be slower than later on when it gathers speed. So again, I'm going to add an ease effect. So I've still got those frames selected. We'll go to the frame properties window, tween in, effect, and we're going to add an ease in. And we'll go for, you can choose any one of these, just have a look at them, see what you think you prefer. I think I'll go with, let's try quart. Okay, and I need to change the position of my play and loop so I can view it. Okay, so this is useful if you don't want to be watching the whole animation all the time. So let's go to here. So we wait in. Yeah, that looks good. We're pulling off and we're pulling off slowly. But as you can see, the wheels are not rotating. So let's highlight some frames on those 2 wheel layers where we've got the classic tween applied. Let's go to rotate and add a clockwise rotation. And I think I'll go with the same. So we add from off the screen to the left to here, we add 10 rotations. Now from here to here, it's not, so the car is not about halfway here. So I'm going to make it a bit more than 10. I think I'll try 14. Enter. Now we'll play it to see how it looks. Nice. So the wheels start rotating and it moves off. Okay, so let's turn that loop off and let's watch the entire animation of the car. So moving forwards, come to a stop and lunge forwards, wait for the lights to change, and then when the lights change we pull off and we go again. Excellent. And then we wait for 3 seconds so we can just think about the animation after it's finished. Okay, so there we've completed the animation of the car. It's working exactly as we want and everything's done. So I'm going to reduce this layer and lock the car folder to lock that layer. Now next let's work on the traffic light layer. So we're going to make the traffic light line up so that it is green at the start, and then as the car approaches it, it turns to amber, and then just before the car stops it turns red, and it stays red for about 2.5 seconds. Okay, so we're thinking about this length here, so I'll open that car folder just to see it line up. Okay, and then it turns back to green here, and that's when the car starts to pull off and move away. So with the traffic lights, we don't need to apply any sort of tweens because it's going to be simple frame by frame animation. And with these lights here, the green, amber and red, we're not going to change the color, we're just going to change the transparency. So when the light is off, we'll reduce the transparency to make it look like it's off. Okay, so starting off on the first frame, that's where we want it on green. And then let's decide where we want it to turn amber. Well, let's decide red first. So I'm going to put red about here. Okay, because it skids then as it turns red. So we'll go just before the skid. And we'll add a keyframe there, F6. And I'm going to add it turning amber about here. We'll try. Okay, so it stays red there. And then just before the car moves off, we'll go about half to 3/4 of a second before that. So about here, we'll add a keyframe. That's when it'll turn back to amber. And then back and here, where it starts to pull off, we'll make that green. Because the car doesn't pull off immediately, because we added that ease, it takes a little bit of time before it starts to pull off. So it'll be green there, and then it'll stay green. Okay, so let's go through it. So on the first keyframe, keyframe 1, we're going to look at these colors. We're going to keep green, and we're going to change amber and red. So I'm going to unlock the layer. So I'm going to click on the amber, and where we got that fill color, just next to that, in the shape object, in the object properties window, under color and style, we've got the fill, and then over here we've got the transparency. Now, if you wanted to, you could just choose a darker amber, but I'm going to go with the transparency and make it about, let's see how it looks at 20. Right, as you can see behind there, we can see the sky, so that doesn't look great, so we'll have to sort that out. Okay, so before I go any further, because I can see the sky behind, I'm going to fix that. Now, I can't place a shape behind the traffic lights because the traffic lights is a shape, and they'll just merge together. So we'll add a new layer, and we'll go traffic lights back. And we'll put it below the traffic lights layer. Now this is going to be a very simple layer, and it's going to do nothing. It's just going to hold a rectangle. So I'm going to draw the rectangle, and it's going to be black to be behind the traffic light here. I don't want a border. Okay, so as you can see, the transparency is set low because I've changed it. So let's put that back up to 100. The fill is black. Now if I draw my line, my rectangle, sorry, is going to be there. So let's just check. I'm going to readjust the layer to see that it overlaps the green. Yeah, it does. Maybe it's a little bit tall, so I'll move it back. Okay, I made a mistake there. I'm going to undo that. So I'm going to lock the traffic lights layer. I'm going to go to the traffic lights back layer. Now this is where I've got that color. Now, as I said, it was slightly tall, so I just want to make it a little bit shorter. Okay, now let's have a look. Does it overlap those colors? If I put it there, yeah, there we go. Okay, so I've covered up those colors. Now I'm going to move the layer back down. Okay, so now when the light is off, I can't see through it now because it's covered in black, and I can't see the blue behind. But the light, I don't think I've made it transparent enough. Okay, so I'm gonna lock this traffic lights back layer and unlock the traffic lights layer. Now the transparency of that amber, I'm gonna increase. So try 40. That looks better, but I'm gonna go a bit higher. Try 50. Okay, yeah, we'll go with that. That looks like it's off. But while still being able to see the color. And let's do the same for the red. Let's make that 50. Okay, so it's clear now that the traffic light is green. So let's go to the next keyframe. Now this one, I want the green to be 50 and I want the red to be 50. Now the reason I'm not selecting the green and red at the same time and changing it to 50 is because if I did that, then it would also change the color of both lights as well as the transparency. Okay, so it'd make the color and the transparency the same, which is what we don't want. Okay, next keyframe. Now here we're going to turn to red. So this is going to be 50 and this is going to be 50. Okay, so let's play that first bit and let's see how it looks. Right, where's my loop? Here. So my play loop is there. I'm going to take it back to the start and bring it back to just after the skew. Okay. So green, amber as it approaches red. Green, amber, red. Looking good. Okay. So let's go to the next keyframe for the traffic lights layer. Now it's going to stay red all along here. Okay, and then when we get to this keyframe, it's going to switch from red back to amber. So I'm going to make the red transparency 50 and the green. And then the next keyframe is going to be green. So I set the amber transparency to 50 and the red transparency to 50. And then that's it for that layer. So it's going to stay green the rest of the way. Now let's watch it all. Green and the car's approaching. Amber and red it stops. Waiting on red. Switch to amber, green, and we start to pull off. And we go. Now I think the amber to green is a bit quick. And the green, because we applied the ease in here, the car doesn't quite start moving until about here. So I think I can afford to bring this keyframe for when it switches to green forwards. So let's play it from here. There we go, that looks better. Okay, so just tinkering with the lining up of the layers, syncing them a bit so it looks better. Okay, and there we've got our animation looking good. Now I'm gonna play it now because we haven't had a chance to look at the effect of the car bobbing. Because at the moment the car's just moving forwards and we're not seeing the effect of the films or the car. So I haven't played it yet because if you remember we were watching the first scene before the traffic lights animation starts playing. So to avoid that problem, I'm going to click into the scene window and we're going to temporarily change the order of the scenes. So I'm going to drag the traffic light scene up so it comes before the title. Now this will mean that when I click test movie up here, the traffic lights animation will play first. The other thing we've got going now, which we didn't have before when we did the films animation we've got 14 seconds worth of frames on the traffic lights animation. Whereas before, when we completed the films, we only had that one frame, okay, so we couldn't have viewed it anyway. So let's view it and hopefully we got no errors to go back and check. So we're going to switch that back later on, but I'm going to click play for now. So there we got the traffic lights coming up first. Nice, brilliant. So we got the films going and you can see the car is bobbing. And then the wheels start and we pull off. Okay, let's start that again. So we green, the car's approaching, amber, red, stop. We skewed, we got the films and the bobbing. Amber, green, the wheels start turning, the car pulls off and goes. So I'm happy with the way that's looking. I think that we've created a good effect of the car approaching, stopping, and then pulling off. Okay, yeah, and it's all working. every part that we've programmed, that we've created is working. Okay, so I'm going to lock the traffic lights layer, collapse the car folder, and then we need to think about our next step. Now this scene is actually complete, so we don't really need to do any next steps unless we want to. So one thing we are going to do is go back to the scene window and rearrange our scene. So it's title first and then the traffic light scene. Okay, so it's back in that order. Let's just click play to test it. Yeah, there we go. So we got the title first. So this scene is complete. So if you want to finish it there, that's fine. But we're going to do something extra. We're going to reuse some assets from a different animation. Now for this part, you will need to have done our Animate with Nested Symbols tutorial for Adobe Animate, in which we created a mountain scene where we had flowers swaying in the wind, a sun rotating and a cloud moving across the sky. Okay, so if you've done that tutorial, we're going to copy some assets from that tutorial, from that program, from that animation to bring into this animation. But if you didn't do that tutorial, you don't have to do these steps, or you could go back and do that tutorial and then come back to these steps. Okay, so on our background layer, we are going to copy in some flowers to go along the side of the road, the cloud to move across the sky, and the sun to be shining, just to make our scene look a bit better and just to show how we can reuse assets from different animations. So I'm going to unlock the background layer. I'm going to click in the library. Now you can see there we've got the different assets that we've created in this animation. So I'm going to go into my project that we created for the Animate with Nested Symbols tutorial, which I'll go open here. Okay, and just to remind you, this is the one we created. This is what it looks like. Now in here, we've got all of our symbols in 3 folders: cloud parts, flower parts, and sun parts. So we can do this really simply by copying and pasting. So I'm going to highlight those 3 folders together and right click copy. Then return to my road safety animation, go into the library, and I'm actually going to make a new folder in the library, and I'm going to call it background symbols. And I'm going to paste those 3 folders into the background symbols folder. So right click on background symbols and paste. Now if I click that expansion arrow for drop background symbols, I can now see I've got the cloud parts, the flower parts, and the sun parts. So let's expand the sun parts. Now we'll expand the other 2 as well, actually, just to see. Now as you can see, it's copied all of the different symbols into this folder here, into this library, not just the main ones, the cloud Annie, the flower Annie, and the sun Annie. And that's because we need all of these other parts for those 3 main parts to work. Because if you remember from that tutorial, the flower animation is made up of all these other parts. Okay, so this flower animation can't function, it can't work without those parts being there, because it pulls symbols out of those parts. Okay, so from sun parts, let's take sun Annie. Make sure we've unlocked the background layer, and I'm going to go to frame 1 of the background layer. Right, I've just accidentally added a symbol onto a keyframe onto frame 149 in the background layer. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to clear keyframe. Let me just check that I haven't got any other keyframes on the background layer, because if I did, then it wouldn't put these symbols on every frame on the layer and I'd have to go through it again. Right, no keyframes. Let's go to keyframe 1, frame 1. Okay, so I'm going to grab sun Annie and drag it in. Our next step is to insert an asset, a new asset, and it's going to be a sound file. And we're going to play the sound as the car comes to a stop. So it's going to be a screeching sound. So for this, obviously you need a sound file that fits in. So it doesn't have to be the screeching sound of the wheel screeching. It could be maybe a horn beeping or an ambulance siren, for example. So something to do with the road. Now, you can find different royalty-free sound files on the internet. Okay, you just need to search. Or the other thing you could be doing is creating your own sounds using a recording device. So maybe you've got a tablet or a phone that's got a recording application on it. Okay, and you can be recording your own sounds. But for this example, we've got a sound file downloaded from the internet. The sound file of the tire screeching is downloaded from a website called bigsoundbank.com. Okay, so there's a link in the description for you to find the file. Okay, or you can find your own. So let's import it. So obviously you need to have downloaded it first and saved it onto your computer into a folder where you can access. So we're going to go to File, Import, Import to Library, and we've got here. It's called Tires and it's from bigsoundbank.com, and it's a .wav file. So we're going to open it, and you'll see it puts it straight into the library. Now, to work with sound files, you need to create a layer because they need the layer of their own. And then on that layer, it'll simply hold the sound file, and then you can manage that sound file. You can adjust it as you want. Now, this is going to be part of the car animation. So I'm going to expand the car folder. And inside the car folder, add a new layer. And that's gone above, so I'll drag it in. And we'll call it Car Tires Screech. Okay, so this is the layer. This is where we're going to drag that sound file in. So let's think where we want the sound to start playing. Now, the sound is going to play as the car comes to a stop. So back here. So as the car approaches the lights and comes to a stop and screeches forward, that's where we want the sound playing. Okay, so it comes to a stop here on frame 83. So we want it playing just before then. So let's select the frame where we want this to start. So as you said, just before it comes to a stop, so we'll go about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds before, 5 frames before it stops. That's where we're going to insert the sound. So I selected that frame. I'm going to grab the sound in the library and drag it onto the stage and just drop it. And you can see on that car tire screech layer, we've added that sound file. So let's play it. Let's see how it looks from frame 1. So that's great, the sound plays, but as you can see, it lasts for too long. Okay, so it's starting about the right time, so the starting was good. Yeah, and then we need to make it finish just after, I think it stops, just after the car stops. So we're going to trim this sound file. And there's a very simple tool we can use in Animate to do it. So what we need to do is just select the sound here, just click on the sound anywhere here. We'll go to Properties, and in the Frame Properties window, we got a sound section, and it shows the sound file that's there. Now we're going to click here to edit the sound envelope, and this will open up a new window to edit the envelope, and that's the sound file. And as you can see, it lasts for a bit over 2 seconds long. So we're going to reduce it. Let's bring it down by going, as we just did, go to the right, we're dragging that slider, bringing it to the left. Let's try 1 second and then see how it looks. Okay, so that looks like it might be a little bit too long, but let's play it and see. Yeah, still a bit too long. Okay, but not massively too long. We're just going to reduce it a little bit, maybe by a couple of tenths of a second. So I'm going to select it again, select the waves, go to Frame Properties window, click Edit, and let's bring it down to about 0.7 seconds long. For some reason it leaves the waves showing, so I'm just clicking on them and it's taking them away. Okay, so let's play it, see how it sounds. Okay, I think the length of it is good, but as you can hear, it's a little bit abrupt. It just comes to a stop. So let's go back in, let's click on the wave, and let's go back to edit, and let's apply an effect. And let's apply fade out. And we're going to take this handle here, drag it a bit further over to the left, so it's got a bit of a longer fade out. Click OK. And let's go back and play it. Right, that looked a lot better. So let me go back a bit further. Actually, I'm going to change my loop of my play. I'm going to bring it back so I'm looping that sound and I can view it. So we go forwards. Yeah, that looked good, and the sound matches up really well. Okay, I think that's looking really good. Yeah, I think we got the timing right, and I think we got our fade out working well, so it doesn't come to such an abrupt stop. It sounds a bit more natural. Okay, so there's this very simple way to insert a sound file, and a nice simple tool within Animate to edit that sound file. Okay, so we can cut it, we can trim it, and we can add an effect like fading out, and that can really enhance our animation by adding some sound, okay, in a really simple way. So we've edited and the sound has lasted roughly 0.7 seconds long, and it starts just before the car stops and it ends just after the car stops. So trying to replicate real life of a car coming to a stop and the wheels screeching. Okay, so that sound file has worked out excellently. We're going to lock that layer and collapse the car folder. So with regards to sound files that are suitable to use, just try and keep it simple. So like we had your .wav file or a .mp3 file, you know, they're nice simple files to work with, and we're not having to convert them to other formats to import them and use them within Animate. Okay, so look for simple files like that. Now our car animation is complete. So let's play it. I'm going to reorder the scenes again. So let's play with the sound. Nice, that sound has worked really well there to enhance the animation. And we pull off. Brilliant. Okay, go to scenes and revert. So just to finish this scene off, just to make it a little bit more attractive, let's use some work we've done before. Now, for these next steps, you need to have followed our tutorial on entitled Animate with Nested Symbols. And in that tutorial, if you followed it, we created a mountain scene with symbols of flowers, the sun, and a cloud animating. Now we're going to look at how we can reuse those assets that we created to bring in. So we're simply going to copy and paste them into this file, this animation, to make this scene look a lot better. Okay, so if you follow that tutorial, you can do these steps. If you haven't followed it, maybe you can watch this and then try later, or leave these steps out. Or if you want to go and do that tutorial now and then come back to these steps, then do that. Up to you. So I'm going to be adding these to our backgrounds layer. Now I need to open that file, Animate with Nested Symbols, and I've got it open here. Okay, so you need it open, and this is what it looks like, just to remind you. So we've got these assets here in the library, and we've got them in 3 folders. Now we're going to copy these 3 folders into our road safety animation. So these 3 folders contain all of the symbols we've used in this animation. Now there are quite a few, because remember the flower was made up of the body, the 2 leaves, the stem, the petals, the middle, all these different symbols working together. Now we need to copy all of these into the road safety animation, because the flower symbol depends on all of these others. And if they are not there, then the flower symbol won't have the necessary parts inside it to look as it looks. Okay. However, if we were to just copy the flower symbol or the flower Annie symbol, it would automatically copy the other symbols that it depends on. So it'd bring them with it. But we're just going to copy these 3 folders anyway. So highlight them all, right click, copy. So very simple copy and pasting. Go back to our road safety animation, and I'm actually in the library. I'm going to add a new folder and call it background images. And I'm going to right click on that folder and paste. Okay, so nice and simple. If you're used to copying and pasting, that's all it takes. We copy those symbols, those assets from that file into this file. So let's have a look. We'll expand the folder, and there you can see all those assets, all those symbols we brought in. Okay, so let's add them onto our car traffic lights animation. So on the background layer, we're just going to check that we haven't got any keyframes that have snuck in there accidentally. No, it's just a frame at the end, and then no keyframes before. Brilliant. So we can click on the first keyframe of the background layer, unlock that layer, and this is where we're going to drag and drop those symbols to enhance this animation. So frame 1 of the background layer, I'm going to go into the background images folder, into the sun parts folder, and get in that sun animation. And let's put it in the top left corner. Okay, now let's get the clouds animation, the cloud part, and bring it in. Now we're going to make this cloud start off to the right, and it's going to move across the stage. And then I'm going to go into my flower parts and bring in the flower animation onto the stage. Now obviously that's too big, so we can use the free transform tool to reduce its size. So we're happy with that. I'm going to use the selection tool and drag it and drop it just at the top of the road here. So it's overlapping the very top of the road and the sky, the clearest blue sky. Okay, now let's have a few of these flowers going across the stage here. But rather than dragging the flower animation symbol in and reducing the size every time, let's just click that flower, hold down Alt on the keyboard, and I'm going to use Shift to align, and I'm going to drag to the right. There we go. So I'm going to keep doing that. We'll make some closer together, maybe some overlapping slightly, some a bit further apart. So it's up to you if you want to make some bigger or some smaller. If you wanted 2 rows, if you wanted to click on some and go to the properties, object properties window, you could add some color effects if you wanted to, some different tints. Okay, but for this example, I'm going to keep them all the same because I think I like that color effect. Okay, I'm going to keep going, keep dragging, holding down Alt to copy, and I've accidentally copied the sky. No problem, we can just edit and do. Reselect that flower, hold down Alt, and we keep moving across. Varying the spacing, and we are done. Okay, so there we've taken that animation of the car and the traffic lights on the road and enhanced it, really made it look a lot better by using the work we've done previously on these symbols, brought them in, and it's made our animation look a lot better. So let's see how it looks now when we play it. So I'm going to lock that background layer for now. I'm going to go to Scene and Rearrange just to view this easily and play. Nice, so I've got my sun rotating, my cloud moving, my flowers swaying, and as you can see, it's made a really nice scene. Now don't forget, the reason I can't click here on the timeline and play, well, I can do it, sorry, but I won't be able to view my animations because remember, they're movie clips. Okay, so that's why I need to click play. They're movie clips containing animations and they play independently of the main timeline. Let's view once more. Yeah, that's looking really good. The car's bobbing and waiting, and then pulls off. Excellent. And as we said, because those symbols are movie clips and they contain the animation, adding them to the main timeline has not affected the length of the timeline. So it doesn't matter how long the animations within these movie clips is or are, it doesn't affect the main timeline at all. So let's go to scene, rearrange, so we got title and then traffic lights. And that completes this part of the tutorial for the road safety animation. Okay, so we've created this traffic light scene. It's looking really good, and that's complete. Now let's finish off by saving the animation. Okay, and then we're ready to move on to part 3. So thank you very much for following along with this Technocamps tutorial. We've completed part 2 of the road safety animation. Look out for part 3, in which we'll be creating a subtitle to introduce the following scene. And in part 3, we'll be animating text and symbols morphing into each other. Okay, don't forget to keep looking out for our different tutorials on our YouTube channel. Thank you for following along.